Morgan, it is a pleasure to have you here. Let's kick things off. So, you've been creating content on LinkedIn for quite a while now, right? So, can you
That is
please
correct.
give us a bit of context on how long it has been and how did that translate into you becoming a founder and then creating a different type of content?
Yeah, so I started creating content in 2016, so quite some time. I've learned a lot along the
Wow.
way. I guess probably the first 3 years, like 2016 to 2019, there was no followers button. So I just for a while, maybe like 5 years. So all the time I was creating that content, there was no followers button. There was no like best practices. Like this was like foreign territory. So
Mm.
I started creating content because I was a sales development rep. So if you don't know what that is, it's called an SDR. It's where you do cold calling, cold emailing, social selling, all that different stuff to book meetings so that uh, your closer can close the deals. For those of you listening and that don't know what that is. So I realized that there wasn't anyone else in my role sharing best practices on what to do. The first 3 months I was not good and I failed and I was like, this sucks. And then month 4 and 5, I was successful. So I was like, well, I don't want people to go through that first 3, 4 months of just feeling awful. So then that's why I created the SDR Chronicles, which was a YouTube channel. Then I started creating content on how to document or basically how to like do better in your SDR role, and everything unraveled from there. So from each, I'd probably say for the past 8 years, my journey of content and how I delivered has been different. And we could touch on that, but that's where I started. And
Yeah,
that's the reason why I started creating content.
love that. You spent such a long time. I did not know there was no follower button back then. Like, I absolutely
No,
had
there's
no
nothing.
idea. That is crazy.
Yeah.
How did you, if there's, so this is such a huge point, I think, because usually when you create content, you want people to follow you so that they can learn more from you. But back then, since there was no follow button, what was your mindset creating content? You wanted to document your journey as an SDR, you could say, but was there any other reason behind it?
I had three main reasons. One is I didn't want to do a cover letter or resume ever again.
Okay.
I just don't even like the process of doing it or applying to jobs. I just didn't want to do it. So that
Mm,
was part of the reason. I was like, if I create enough content, people will know who I am through the content, and I probably don't ever have to go through an interview again. Which I was right, because I haven't had to do it since I got my first job, and I probably won't
mm,
ever have to do it, to be fair. So that was number one. Number two is I wanted to get access to people,
mm,
and so the only way to really get access to certain people is they have to see, are you credible or you know what you're talking about. So I have, even the past 8 years of content, I'm able to talk to certain people that most people may not be able to, or it's going to take them longer to, because they see my content, they know how I think. So like, oh yeah, well, if Morgan thinks that way, like I'm more than happy to talk to him because I already know
yeah.
what I'm getting into going into conversation. So that was a part of it. And three, it really was giving back. I had actually, and people are going to say that I'm lying, but I actually had no like intention of monetization. I didn't even know what that
Mm,
was. Like, again, this was 2016. So sure, I could have found people that were doing that, but brand wasn't like massive back then, to be fair. Like people were just figuring it out. So I was really just focused on those three things. And I knew if I could never have to look for a job again, and if I had access to certain people, I knew everything else would pan out for itself. But I didn't
mm.
have any intention of like doing these certain things. I'd probably say as a bonus factor, yeah, like I was able to speak on stages, which is what I always wanted to do. So that was really helpful. But everything else, like those three were the main reasons.
Love that. Before we jump into your journey as a founder, right? I think it's been a little over a year since you've created your AMP business, if I'm not wrong. LinkedIn back then and content creation back then as compared to today, what do you think are main differences? Because right now, content, well, a lot of people are creating it still, right?
Yeah.
But back then, what are some stark differences?
Well, one, there wasn't not a lot of people. So I could create a post and get like 400,000 impressions, but like there wasn't anyone there wasn't anyone else creating, so I had no competition. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it made life a lot easier. I mean, I wish I'd have known, kind of like a retroact, but like, yeah, I wish I'd have known certain things back then for sure, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I just know I
Yeah,
need to create content. Formatting was not a thing. So if you looked at my old posts, it was just like block of text. Like now you have
like
to
big
know how to
chunks.
big chunks. Like I wasn't even thinking about the hook, honestly, until probably like 2, 3 years out. I'm just being real. Like I was just like sharing. Like I wasn't
Mm,
thinking about hooks, rehooks, the lead, solving the problem, bullet points, listicles, call to action, putting your insights in the comments, like stuff that I optimize for now. That wasn't the case back then. It was just like just share insights and
yeah.
people want to learn. right? There also wasn't any carousels. There wasn't any images. There wasn't any selfies. It's just like there wasn't all these things that have now creeped into the platform. It
Yeah.
was just like, do you have insight or not? And if it's insightful, people want to engage. If it wasn't, people didn't want to engage. So I feel like you didn't have to worry about reading levels or things of that nature. It was just like, share your thoughts. And so I've had to enhance my own craft in the past couple of years and re-enhance a lot of things that I do because I was used to just a way of doing things of like, I put the content out there, it worked, and I didn't have to think about it a whole lot, to be fair. Now it's a lot different.
Yeah. But that makes me curious, right? Because then at some point recently, like last year, you could say you transitioned from having a personal brand and benefiting from it to having a founder brand, which is under the same umbrella. But now I'm sure you must have thought about content in a different way now, because now you're playing a different ball game. Or was it like just a continuation of what you're doing?
Completely different.
Mm.
Completely different.
Okay.
I would say I've gone through four iterations of content. So this is
Okay.
interesting for people even listening in. So how long have you been creating content?
It's been 3 years now.
3 years. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
coming out of a pivotal point. So I've been doing it
Mm.
on LinkedIn. I've been doing it for 8. I've been doing content for a decade because I started off in Facebook,
Mm.
Facebook organic videos and Periscope. I don't know if you remember Periscope.
I don't. I actually don't.
Check. Yeah, it was a live streaming platform.
This is such a wealth of knowledge. Like I have no idea half of the stuff that you're talking about.
Periscope was a
Okay.
live streaming platform back in the day, where it was the first of its kind, where you could go and live stream and you could go to other countries and see people just live streaming. And then
Mm.
that's where other people adopted the live stream and then they did it on other platforms. So why am I saying all this? Because effectively the live streaming, I did like 2 or 3 a day on Periscope to like get better at video, et cetera. And I actually grew on Periscope, which allowed me to grow in other areas. And it got acquired by like Twitter. I don't think they even use it anymore. But my whole point with that is that's where I started, just like motivational videos on Facebook and Periscope. And so I'm saying all this is like, well, how is the way I've changed is 4 stages. So the first stage was the SDR Chronicles, the SDR advice. That was about maybe 3-4 years. Then I went into like the sales training route. And then I just started talking about more broadly of pipeline generation. Then the third stage was like me just figuring it out. It just being like, I don't really know. I don't want to talk about influencer marketing, employee. Obviously, now it's more, hey, we're helping founders, executives create brands, and that leads to revenue. Now, the interesting thing about every single person that creates content, and I'll answer the question here, is when you start creating content at year 3 is when you face a juncture.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is that's when you're going to make a decision on, do I like this topic and I'm going to keep talking on this topic? Do I expand on this topic or do I let it go? A lot of people at year 3 of content creation, they typically run into like a wall. And I've heard it from other people. I've run into myself. You have to make that decision on what you're going to do. So for me, like I ran into that wall. I decided to expand it even more. And then you continuously have to iterate. And so what I've realized with the founder brand, you really have to think about every single post that you do is not 100% about you. It's about what you're building, what clients you're actually trying to get in front of, like how are you elevating your team. There's a lot more that's happening there where you are acting more as the point guard or the quarterback rather than the wide receiver or the all-star, like, hey, just give me the ball. It's like you have to allocate what you're looking to do. Like, who are we trying to elevate? What are we trying to point the mission towards? Because people, whether people like it or not, when you become a founder, the content that you put out there changes now because of that title that you have. And I know people say, hey, I don't believe in titles, but it does change the way that people receive your information. So now I think about things on a bigger vision level than just like when I was creating content at the beginning, it was just like, I'm just talking about SDRs. I'm an SDR. Come check it out. Now it's like, okay, I have to think about things differently.
Yeah, no, I completely agree because when I started creating content on LinkedIn, I was just there to find the job, right?
Yeah.
And then I found a job as a remote employee, and then I started creating content as an employee. Once I started creating content as an employee, then eventually I realized if I was going to become a founder, which I did this year, I shifted again and pivoted to creating content as a founder. All these 3 levels were so different from each other. And I felt like I had to reinvent myself in terms of content creator to allocate proper thought leadership, you could say, the kind of content I put out or the way people receive it. I think there's different. Those I completely relate to that. Now, Morgan, you've been a founder for over a year now, specifically for AMP. What is your strategy? Do you target people who are potential customers? Like when you create content, do you follow specific content pillars or do you create content off the cuff? Like what is your strategy?
Uh, I cannot create content off the cuff.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
like I can, but I don't like to.
Okay.
I actually like to be very like thoughtful in the way I think about things. I think anyone can do that. Like, hey, off the cuff, like, yeah, I can if like, there's a really moment and I want to share,
Yeah.
but I have a process 100% because that process is what we teach clients to do. So I just want to be able to share, hey, this is how I go about it. So it's changed over the years, but now mine is 3 revenue content pillars. So I believe everyone
Okay.
should have, and what I call them revenue content pillars is because these are the 3 topics that you should be speaking about every single time because they're going to lead you to revenue. And I don't know about you, this might be a hot take, but I don't trust people who are like, oh, I'm just creating content just to like hang out. Like that's not like
I
most time that's not going to
that
happen.
is I completely resonate because people say, well, we're creating content, but the truth is everybody's here on this platform to generate business and revenue. That's
Again,
that's what I
100%.
believe.
Which some of you may be like, wait, Morgan, that contradicts your point when you first started creating content. I was like, yes, I agree. But again, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I was just like,
Yeah.
I guess I should just put this out here. And that was years ago. But I'd say like right now in today's age, if someone's just like, I'm just creating content just to hang out, that's not true. Like
Yeah.
you're taking the time to generate business. And this is just coming from hundreds of executives and founders that I speak to, probably the same for you. It's like when I get on discovery calls with them, it's not, hey, like I want to become an influencer today. It's like, no, they're like, I'm creating content because I know it's going to help me
Yeah.
drive business. So help me do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's why they're in the conversation. So I want to clear that up before I go into what I'm going to say. That's why we call them
Yeah.
revenue content pillars. It's not just, we're not doing this just because we want to. Like I love creating content, but not everyone does. And I understand that.
Yeah.
So the content pillars that we have are, number 1, it's focused on how to build a creator-led business. So there's a lot of
Okay.
people that follow me that are sales creators or content creators or whatever it is, and they are solopreneurs, but they eventually want to build a team. So I've been able to do that in the past 2 years, starting my company, and I have a team of people. And yes, I do sacrifice profit margins there. So I may not make as much as like a solopreneur creator, but I also sacrifice profit margin for peace and sanity. And I'll take that every single day of the week, to be fair. And I also know
Yeah.
in the long run it'll pay off. Like I'll end up exceeding what that person
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
making now
Definitely.
based on leverage, right? Which is the game. So
Mm.
I talk about how I'm building on what I'm doing, and people really respect that. That turns into typically people who want to maybe consult with us. That just builds overall brand. It may not lead to clients, but it will lead it to long-term revenue because those people, as they build, they may even bring us to even help with their content, to be
Yeah.
fair. So the second one that we focus on is expertise into revenue. This is like the core one. This is basically talking about like you're a founder right now, you're super busy, you know you want to create content, you've been kind of doing it, but you don't have a system. We can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
you. So that's more so what we're doing with clients, how I'm going about it, like what you should do, the pain points. Like I'm speaking right to the pain points, right? And so that's what that is there. And then the other one is innovative ways to generate pipeline. So this is basically a little bit of my sales expertise, the LinkedIn expertise on how do you actually reach out to people in a thoughtful way based on the content they're engaging. I believe at the end of the day, it's not just creating content, it's actually also being thoughtful in your outbound too. So we
Yeah.
merged them together, and those are the 3 revenue content pillars. And so what I do is every single month, once a month, I have just a content day. One day I'll block off half the day and I'll just create all my content for the entire month.
Okay.
And then on Wednesdays, I was telling a founder this the other day, I block off the entire day just to create content overall. So these are like my videos. So I'll
Yeah.
do 2 to 3 long form videos on a Wednesday, probably 15 shorts that I'll do. And then I also will edit and optimize posts that I already wrote. So I don't write and edit in the same sessions. I write
Okay.
or I just edit. I don't do both. Because the writing, you need a free form of your ideas to get out there. Editing's a different lens where you need to just like cut things down, brevity, optimization, etc. So that's like my process. So I know
Yeah.
going into January, as we make this in December, I know exactly what my posts are, how my calendar, I know what my brand partnerships are. I'm already
Yeah.
optimizing what February is going to look like. So that's the way that I do it.
Love that. And I've seen you preach this in your content, how executives need to be on LinkedIn creating their founder or executive brand. But I still talk to people and I get signals where people are like, wait, let's just wait till Q1 ends and then we can maybe think about it. Maybe Q2. In your opinion, number one, why should a founder be creating their founder brand or executive brand on LinkedIn? Two, when is the best time to start?
So why should you be doing it is because someone else is going to do it in your space and you're going to be upset. So if you think about, let's just use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn right now has 1 billion users. There's 300, I think, and 6 million active users. And there's only 1 to 3% of people who post consistently. Now, if you take those numbers, that's 1 to 3% is very low. Now, you're going to feel like no one's paying attention to you in the beginning. Well, that's literally everyone. Like no one's going to, most people don't, there's anomalies, sure, that go viral, like off the rip.
Yeah.
But that is so rare that happens. And you're going to feel like it's noisy, but there aren't a lot of the top players. There's not a lot of people who are the 0.0001%. You just see them a lot, so you feel like it's noisy, but it's really not. And if you're just looking to get revenue and get meetings, you're not looking to get 1,000 likes and 1,000 comments because that's not your goal. Your goal is just to get people to see your expertise and listen.
Relevant people. Yeah.
Exactly. So the thing is, like, it's a huge opportunity because we're essentially in the first inning. And the piece of this is your competition is not doing it. So now you're going to get awareness on a platform that is free, and it's going to increase your outbound interactions as well. So that's the reason why this is worth doing, because it's going to make your overall job easier, because when people see you, they're going to already know who you are. And your sales conversations just become conversations. When people come to me, probably you as well, that like they're not really vetting if I know what I'm talking about. Like they already know. It's just
they already have enough context. They just have the context. It's a conversation that they have then.
Yeah, it's just, that's what it is. Like, is this a fit or not? And so that's what you want. And the other thing I want to also call out that most people don't talk about is, yes, this leads into pipeline, but this also increases your deal sizes and also lessens your sales cycle. So for example, if I really want to know what you're talking, if I really want to know, does this person know what they're talking about? They're going to go through my LinkedIn. They might even go check me out on YouTube. Now, if I have YouTube videos that are like hour or 2 hour long, and maybe they only have 100, 200 views, you may not think that's a big thing, but I know that could be huge, because those 100 people could actually be Fortune 100, exactly. I don't know. It could be, right? And so that's the way I think about it, is that like, as long as I'm sharing in-depth expertise, people are going to look at my profile to check. This happened on a call yesterday. The person was like, yeah, I looked through 30 of your posts. It already looked legit. I already know what you're about. What do we need to do? It's like, that's the reason that you create content. I don't have to run in-depth discovery. I don't have to build trust with you. And that's the key, is that you're doing content to build in the trust economy, because we're not really in the attention economy, because it's easy to get attention. I'm going to call this person out, and like, y'all probably saw it, but like Hawk Tua, easy to get attention, but she's got the wrong attention right now.
And everybody's like the rug pull, and she hasn't been online for 12 days
online
now, I think. Yeah.
Right. So it's not about getting attention. It's about getting trust. And so that's the way to do it. And I'll answer your second question. The best time is right now. I mean, I feel like that's a setup for me to say, like, you need to do it right now. Should have done it years ago. But yeah, the best doing is do it is right now. And then it's coming down to, what is stopping you from doing it today? Is it fear? Is it support? You hit us up, but like, is it support? Is it, I don't know what to do? Like, figure out what the reason that's stopping you, and then go from there.
Love that. Now, you mentioned attention and trust. These are things that you might get attention initially if you're lucky, like maybe there's an anomaly, but trust isn't built in 1 or 2 months, right? And a lot of founders, are like the agencies that I worked at, most of them churned around 3-month mark, because they said, well, we've been creating content for 3 months, building our brand, nothing's coming off, there's no ROI, we want to quit. But the thing is, what I believe is you need at least 3 to 6 months to gain some proper momentum.
Correct.
And then people start trusting you, right? People enter your LinkedIn ecosystem, the way you interact with others, how others speak of you, the content you create. Then they get nurtured with time, trust develops, and then when they're ready to buy, they come to you even if they haven't publicly engaged with you. So what would your answer to that be if somebody says, well, I've been creating content for 3 months as a founder or an exec, but I don't feel like there's no ROI?
How long does it take for a company to be profitable?
Long time.
So that's my question every single time.
Mm.
We're expecting things to be fast, but you are a founder building a company.
Yeah.
So how can we expect this also to be fast?
Yeah.
It's going to take time. Just like it's going to take time to build your company, it's going to take time to build trust. Trust is not something that is built overnight. It's going to take time. Now, once you have it, then that will last you the next decade or whatever it is. So are you willing to put in the work for 6 months to have a decade of potential digital trust? I think 99% of people will take that, right? So that's the way that I phrase it to people is like, you are a founder and you are building your business. Building a business takes time, just like building content and creating content and getting trust on the platform takes time because you have to get the reps in for people to know
Yeah.
who you are and what you're about. But once you've built that foundation, it is something that someone cannot take away from you unless you decide to do something crazy, and I can't help you. But if you put in the work, right, people over time like, oh, I've seen you, I know what's going on. It's going to take time to build from there already. And then if someone's like, well, I don't have time for that, then okay, that's fine. But that's the way that I phrase it is that like you are a founder building your business, so that you have to think about it in the same way as creating your content.
Love that. And there's one other objection that I usually face, and people mention it, right? And I think it's very prominent. Founders specifically, they say, well, we cannot justify the ROI of time spent on a platform because we feel like we could rather spend that time running the business itself.
Mm.
So what would your answer to that be?
I feel like that is a good way of thinking about it for sure, right? Because obviously, if you want to
Yeah,
run
it's a
your
valid
business,
question, right?
it's a
Valid
valid
concern.
question. It's a valid question, and like I would say the same if I wasn't in the game as well. Like, why would I do that? The way though that I articulate it to people though is yes, you do need to run your business, and you can be successful without it, right? However, what I also say is this will just make your life a lot easier. So you could just run the business and not do content, and you could still be successful. There are people who've done that for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm also telling you that if you do this, as you work on the business, the things that you have constraints in, which probably typically leads to pipeline or closing deals or conversations or whatever it is, or awareness of the market, can be solved if you focus on the content. So whatever you're working on in the business could be solved by the thing that you actually don't want to do. Now, I think contextually, it all depends on what they're working on, because maybe timing's everything, because maybe content isn't it's not the right time for the content.
Exactly.
And also, I'm that's fair, right? There's a little bit more contextual things we need. But if your constraints revolve around the things I just said, you're trying to solve for something that you already could be solving for if you started creating the content. And that could start putting you in the right direction. Also, as well, typically when people say that, it means that you probably don't have the right systems in place for you to create the content. Because you could create 20 pieces of content within 2 hours if you have the right system, to be fair. It just comes down to having the right system and getting things in place.
Love that, Morgan. Now, one last thing before you wrap up. There's a certain obsession with vanity metrics. And by vanity metrics, I mean, oh, I created a post. Why hasn't it gotten 500,000 impressions? Where are the reactions? Why am I not viral? Where are the reposts, comments, etc.? My argument to that is you're not creating content for masses. If you're trying to sell something to somebody, there's a specific persona that you're targeting. You talk about their pain points. You create thought leadership based around that industry. Be bold in it, right? But there are still people, specifically founders, they might lose interest in the platform or they might get discouraged if they don't see great numbers. I always say 500 relevant eyeballs are greater than 500,000 irrelevant ones.
Yep.
So what is your take on this? Like, how do you change this mindset from what I want to get numbers to I actually want to get relevant numbers?
Yeah. So it goes back to what you said is I always try to understand what is the goal. And I actually proactively always call it out in my discovery calls. I just say, hey, like I feel like the goal here isn't for you to become an influencer, right? I think you just want to build your business in pipeline. Everyone always laughs and they say, no, I'm not trying to be an influencer. So then I'm like, okay, so our goal is to get is to have revenue and also for you to be a trusted source so that you can, in the back end, make money. Yes, cool. So then I'm like, yeah, we can look at these things, reactions and comments. They're important to know what people respond to, but that it isn't the end all be all. Because if you did a video on LinkedIn, for example, there are videos that pop off and do 200,000 impressions. I have friends that have done 1 million impressions, but their video did 1 million impressions, but only had 100 likes. That doesn't make any sense.
The same thing happened to me like a couple of weeks ago. 500,000 impressions, 90 reactions, and like 30 comments. Too random.
It's too random. So
Too
I
random.
could, if I gave you a report in 30 days and said, yeah, we had 5 videos that had 1 million impressions, but only 100 reactions and 20 comments, I'd be like, yeah, we hit the goal. I had 12 million, 10 million impressions.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's not what we're looking for. And it's like, that's my whole point, is that we don't want to just focus on that, because we got to understand how that's relevant or not relevant. So what I always focus on is, for the people that are engaging and reacting to us, are these the people that actually would buy or be interested in what we're offering? Because if we have 50 people that like our posts every single time, and they're the 50 ideal buyers, then we've done our job.
Yeah.
And that's the way I position people and focus them on that, is that your goal is not to become an influencer. You don't want thousands and 200,000 of likes, because that's not your goal. If that was your goal, you had a different strategy, but that's not your goal. So this is what we're looking to do.
Love that, Morgan. Thank you so much for such an insightful conversation. I think the half of the stuff, as I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't know that LinkedIn had no follow feature.
No.
Even the platform that you mentioned that got acquired later on, I had no idea it existed. But thank you so much for the conversation. I think there's a lot of people that can take away from this, specifically founders or execs who want to create content on LinkedIn. It was a pleasure to have you, Morgan. Hope you had a good time as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.